Yeah, that's why I never stand up on camera.
I've seen you walk though. I didn't think that. Do it. $70 hat over there. Yo, what's going on? It's the Stokastic.com NFL Deeper Dive Showdown edition, baby. We got the Broncos back in prime time. Who isn't stoked to watch Nathaniel Hackett rip defeat from the jaws of victory, they might say? Anyway, I'm Dave Loughran. Happy to have you guys with us. Hit me up, Loughy_D on Twitter, LOUGHY_D. Joining me, as always, every Monday night, Neil Orfield. Some call him, I heard this recently, some referred to him as the Showdown Shaman. And that rung true the other day when I think it was second, right, Neil? Second?
No, so I got third on DraftKings and I got fourth on FanDuel. So it was a decent show, and made a little bit of money. Didn't quite get there. There were plays that I needed to happen that didn't quite happen at the end there. But hey, I'll take a profit.
DK was like 28K though, right?
It was 28K on DraftKings. So I will take that. More often than not, I'm losing money. I mean, everybody, any player on any slate, more often than not, you're going to be losing money unless you're playing cash. So yeah, I'll take the money when I can get it.
You can follow Neil at PlayerQDFS on Twitter, and check out all of his videos and articles, everything he's doing for Showdown content. Massively helpful stuff. I do think though in your Twitter bio, Showdown Shaman should be added to it.
I should probably add that because a lot of people are calling me that.
Yeah, I honestly forgot your name was Neil for a second. So
yeah, that's just what everybody calls me. Yeah.
Just throwing it out there. Jordan Klein producing this one. All right, let's have some fun. We got a lot to talk about here. Broncos, Chargers. This line's down to 4 points now too. So it should be interesting. But before we do any of that, we got over almost 550 watching, 60 likes. You already know what we got to do. We got to get the numbers up, friends. Take a single second. It helps us greatly. Atone for your sins. Click that thumbs up. And if you hate this show, hit the thumbs down twice. Also, subscribe. And if you want to join, hit join down below. Get the free super chats each month, the custom emojis, the sweet badges, as you see many of them in chat. There we go. Up over 100. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. And we're also doing a lot of other stuff, if you want to be a member. Also appreciate all you guys who gift those memberships throughout the week. It's pretty cool stuff. All right, man. You ready to make this happen?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. First up, we got to talk a little strategy here with you, with the Shaman. And all slates are different for Showdowns, just given how many options, like what type of players you have. If this is a Bills Kansas City Chiefs Showdown, it's certainly different with the way you're building lineup and leaving salary, or maybe not leaving as much salary on the board as you would with, some of these other contests that are, wildly low scoring, say Bears and Washington, you could have left a lot of salary. Is there anything that stands out to you about this game specifically, be it target shares, backfields, salaries, anything that is worth touching on before we dive into the teams?
Well, we've got an interesting situation with the Broncos backfield just because Melvin Gordon is a little bit banged up. Mike Boone was also a little bit banged up earlier in the week, but he's not questionable. Last I saw, he was not on the injury report. So we're going to have to see inactives, which should be out in about 10 minutes, I believe. So that'll be interesting to note. But even the fact that Melvin Gordon is banged up, I'm going to have a little bit of interest in a guy who may not see the field. He also could be inactive, so we'll find this out. But Latavius Murray at very little ownership, I'm going to have some interest there just because he's coming in with really unknown spot on the roster. We don't really know how much they're going to use Latavius Murray at all. And I like to take advantage of those kind of spots with the player who's going to be low owned at low salary, wouldn't take that much to pay off that salary. So I think the backfield for the Broncos is kind of interesting. Now we add Greg Dulcich to the tight ends for the Broncos. It's been such a headache all year. But I'm just going to play the ownership game there. If Greg Dulcich does not get a ton of ownership, I'm going to be playing some Greg Dulcich. We currently have him at 4% projected ownership. So my guess is I'll be above the field there, but he's also all of my favorite plays on the slate are live to score 0 points and see 0 opportunities. It's not like the spot a few weeks ago when I really loved Paris Campbell, and he made all the sense in the world to me. He was under 4% owned, playing like every snap, running every route, and of course he didn't get there. So those are the spots that I love. I don't think we have any of those spots this week where guys have like really great opportunity and are still going to be low owned. I think you're going to have to take some shots on players who are less probable to get there.
It's a good segue into the Denver Broncos here. Let's start with the backfield. So this is how I feel about Melvin Gordon today, Neil. And I will say I bet an alt rushing line on him. I'm not recommending or advising anyone do this, but I'm doing this because I think he's going to wildly underwhelm, or he's going to be healthy and he's going to be fine, because he did practice in a limited capacity all week long. I'm not really sure where he's at. So the 53.5 total, the 53.5 yard prop, it's like, yeah, he could go for 20. He might not see the field. Or against the Chargers team that's allowing, this is not me misspeaking, 5.8 yards per attempt this year. They've been gutted on the ground. They've allowed 3 straight 100-yard rushers, not as a team, not 3 straight teams that have gone over the 100-yard mark. 3 straight teams, each one of them had a 100-yard rusher in the last 3 games that the Chargers have played. So I think you could see a Melvin Gordon game where he actually, like, let's say he's out there and he's good to go and he's not limited, where he crushes, or you could see Latavius Murray and Boone in there, and Melvin Gordon's workload is limited at best, and he does nothing. So I think the range of outcomes for Melvin Gordon today is very wide one.
Yeah, so we're on the exact same page. I think that just the entire backfield, the range of outcomes is very wide. Melvin Gordon is probably, if he is active, I think he's probably the RB1, the guy who gets the bulk of the carries. I also noted in my Showdown article that I wrote today, in the second half of the last game that the Broncos played, which was Thursday Night Football a couple weeks ago, if I remember correctly, Gordon played 13 snaps in the second half. Mike Boone played 20. So even in that game, when Melvin Gordon was healthy, Mike Boone actually played more snaps than him in the second half. So there is a range of outcome within the range of outcomes. Is Melvin Gordon is healthy, he plays, and Mike Boone has overtaken him. I don't think that's very likely. I think Melvin Gordon is most likely the guy for the Broncos. But I like the fact that we have kind of an unknown situation here, so you can just kind of play the ownership game.
You're also dealing with a kind of with a variable here that's hard to quantify in Nathaniel Hackett. Like, no matter what, he's probably going to make the wrong decision. You know what I mean?
Correct.
We just can't predict what that's going to be.
And you know what the wrong decision is? Latavius Murray gets 25 carries.
Exactly. Or Melvin Gordon gets 22 carries and he's clearly at less than 50% healthy.
Right.
To
be clear, guys, we're not making predictions here. We're making jokes. But yeah, sure. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Latavius Murray played a lot of snaps for the Saints in the London game that he was in before they dropped him. He's apparently capable of taking a good number of snaps. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen here? But we can just play the ownership game. Currently, we have Melvin Gordon, looks over-owned for the sake of DraftKings. Currently projected to be 6% in the captain spot. We have an optimal 3% in the captain spot. And then in the utility spot, we're projecting him for 27% ownership, 25% optimal. So Melvin Gordon looks a little bit over-owned for this game, but I do think that he is most likely, the most likely scenario is that he is the bell cow back for the Broncos.
And to be clear, no, we are making jokes, but I'm not joking about the fact that Nathaniel Hackett makes it impossible to like properly evaluate a backfield or really even a game plan at this point.
Because he's not going to do what he should do, which is it's easier to predict when you think coaches are going to do what they should do. We just don't know with Hackett. Yeah, I agree.
Right. And we're not necessarily sure what he should, like what the right move is, because we don't know about Gordon right now. Yeah, this isn't a spot where, like, when they had Javonte Williams, it was pretty clear to anybody watching that he was the most talented back. Javonte Williams should have gotten more of the workload, and he was actually starting to. But yeah, in this backfield, I don't think it's all that clear. Agreed. But it is an interesting one. This could clearly be the deciding factor in tonight's slate, right? This backfield against a horrible run D.
Yeah, I know. It definitely could be.
What's Murray's ownership?
We have Murray at, hang on, it's pretty low. I want to say like 3%. Let me pull that up though.
Hold on, I got him. We have Latavius Murray at 3%.
Yep. 1,600. I think you could do worse.
Where we have Boone at?
12.3.
Yeah, so we have all of these Denver running backs with negative leverage scores.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense. But man, if Murray gets a goal line opportunity or so, if they get there, I mean, they will, but this is the worst goal. This is the worst red zone offense in the league. This is amazing. They have converted 21% of red zone opportunities into touchdowns this year, Neil. I mean, that's brutal. I think it's 3 for 14. 3 of 14. Real bad.
It's not great. Yeah.
And it's just gonna create a lot of uncertainty. But yeah, I honestly, despite the negative leverage, I do get what you're saying though. If Murray's gonna be virtually, 3% on a showdown slate, a milli maker, that's nothing in a backfield that currently could be in flux. Now, if Gordon's out, Murray's going to be a whole lot more than 3%, but this is assuming Gordon's in.
Yeah, for sure. If Gordon is out, then for sure Latavius Murray will get more ownership. It's maybe that 70-yard field goal was the right call because Nathaniel Hackett just knew they couldn't get, if they get into the red zone, they're not going to score. So he thought our best option here is kicking a 70-yard field goal to end the game. That's a joke, by the way.
Dude, I don't know. I wish I did. All right, let's talk about this is where it gets even worse. If we're actually, let me hit on the super chat. Thoughts on Dulcich being activated for tonight? I have no idea, man. They're using 1,000 different tight ends to begin with. I mean, if you just look, if you consider, and it depends on what site you're on, if you consider Andrew Beck a tight end, you know, he's getting work. And then you have Eric Saubert, who last week had 7 targets, led the team in snaps. Tomlinson, mostly a blocking tight end, but he's going to play. And then Albert O's out there for 15 snaps last game, 21%. There's no clear guy here. To me, Saubert's probably still the top option.
He's also questionable.
Yeah, if he plays, right.
Yeah. I think I will have some interest in Greg Dulcich just because although they have said that he's not going to be a full go right away, they're going to have to kind of work him in. So he's not going to be an every snap kind of guy, but because of the price tag, I think Greg Dulcich is certainly in play, and I'll probably be above the field at 4%. I've been thinking maybe I'll be double the field, maybe triple the field, but I'm not going to be playing 50% Greg Dulcich. I think that he's there's a very high likelihood that Greg Dulcich scores a 0, but he's also not getting very much ownership. And I think that there's also a decent likelihood that he does score a touchdown, have a few receptions, and at 200, it's enough to pay off his salary.
And then CM with a $5 super chat. Thanks, man. He didn't have a question in there. If you have one, let me know. I saw one a little bit low. I said, Laffy, do you watch City on the Hill? I watched the first season. I have no problem spoiling it at this point. It's been 3 years. The part where he splattered Macaulay Culkin brothers' brains all over the wall was rather interesting. But sorry, Jordan.
I have not seen this.
No point now. I just gave away a lot of it. It's 3 years, dude. When it comes to spoilers, like I saw somebody get mad the other day about a spoiler for The Sopranos.
Yeah.
What? If you haven't watched The Sopranos and you're upset that people are talking about it, you have bigger problems. That's all I'm saying. It's okay if you haven't watched it, but you know what I mean. Anyway, I didn't see the second season. All right. Let's talk about the pass catching options here. First off, let's talk about Russell Wilson. What do you want to do with Russell Wilson? Got the partially torn lat in his throwing shoulder too, for whatever that's worth.
I'm probably going to be playing Russell Wilson. What do I want to do with Russell Wilson? I want to just forget his existence, never see him again. But I'm going to play him for this showdown. We've got him at 10% ownership in the captain spot, optimal 11.5% of the time. He has positive leverage in both the captain spot and the utility spot. My guess is I'll be above the field. So we've got him again, 10% ownership in the captain spot, 43% in the utility spot. I'll probably be above the field in both spots.
I mean, at this point, we don't know. Maybe Wilson's better. He said it's feeling. I mean, he's not fully better. You're not just getting like a partial tear disappearing over the course of a week. Granted, he did have a long layoff, right? So that's good. They didn't play since last Thursday. That's a huge time for them not to play. I don't know, man. He has the weapons.
Exactly. I mean, everybody thought that all offseason, Russell Wilson traded to the Broncos. All of these Broncos pass catchers get a huge upgrade, right? I mean, including Albert O. We thought Albert O was going to get the upgrade. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, they're all going to look great. KJ Hamler is a guy that I was targeting all offseason in best ball, and it turns out he's just not that good. Bill Castle says Russell is not hurt, just an excuse because he sucks. That's kind of what I think. It's kind of what I've been sort of suspecting. You know, these quarterbacks, they look really bad, and then it's like, oh no, I'm hurt. That's why. No, I can't make that medical diagnosis. He's probably hurt to some extent. He might be exaggerating it, but I don't know, man. I just don't know what to make of Russell Wilson. But I'm gonna be taking shots on him if the field isn't going to be getting there to the extent. If the field's not playing 80%, I'll probably be above the field there.
I feel like though, if he wasn't actually hurt, saying he has a partially torn lat would be the oddest, injury to conjure up. Like, I asked Alex Brown today on the strategy show with Matt Gajewski, who is a former defensive end for the Chicago. You know this. I'm just letting
Alex Brown. Okay,
Chicago Bears. And I was like, have you ever heard of any other player when you were in the league dealing with that? And he's like, I don't think so. Definitely not my teammate. So it would be odd, but I don't know. It's possible. It's possible that he's just not being good. A lat is activated with pulling motion, right? So it is odd that it would have. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to waste your
bodybuilder over here.
No, but you know that if you're working your back out, you're definitely pulling motion or rowing motions, right? That type of stuff. I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter at this point. The issue that I'm having, and I'm hoping you can help me. I'm hoping you can talk me through this, Neil, right? Yep. As a shaman, it's your job to guide me to where I need to be, right? Give me some DFS.
No Albert O tonight. Just a side note, no Albert O. That was a surprise for me.
Ooh. And so is that a coach's decision?
I assume so. I had no indication that he was hurt, and it's possible I just missed it. But
I'm saying with Dulcich, they might just be like, "All right, Albert, you're a coach. You're an inactive."
Yeah, could be. Right? I mean, that's very interesting.
I need you to guide me through this. This is where I'm struggling with Denver, and this is Denver as a whole. I'm sure a lot of people have similar thoughts that I do. If you're looking at this team, you're going, yes, and you just said it. They should be good. Right? Like they should be good. They should be able to do this. We loved them before the season began. But now we're in a position where through 5 weeks, we're in week 6 now, through 5 weeks, they've shown us nothing to suggest that they are the team that we thought they were. Wilson has shown us nothing to suggest that he is the quarterback we thought he would be in this offense. So on a regular slate, I'm just full fading Denver, no problem. But on a showdown slate, and I think this is probably where you're going to go with this, you don't really have that option. So is that like, do you go overweight on it as a result because other people have seen how bad they've been? Do you go with the field? Do you know what I'm asking you?
I know what you're asking me. And the answer for me is I'm going to trust our tools here. And our tools say that Russell Wilson is going under-owned in both the captain spot and the flex spot. I expect there to be a correction at some point. I think that, there is an adjustment period when a quarterback moves to a new team. So, still getting used to his weapons. I think that they'll get there. I think that Wilson will be better at some point, whether it's week 7, I don't know. I'm hoping so because I'm going to be above the field here. But your guess is as good as mine if Wilson still has that ability. I assume he's going to have spike weeks with these weapons. So I'm playing Wilson. I'm going to be going above the field, but yeah, I mean, he has not looked good this year. He might be washed. It is possible that Russell Wilson is just washed. I don't think that he's so washed that he's not going to have any good weeks this year. But I think that I'm going to be taking shots here for sure. They're going to need to be keeping up with the Chargers too. So they're going to need to be throwing. So I'll be playing Russell Wilson here.
Hey, Gray-haired gaming using the free super chat member for 16 months. My man said his feelings are hurt with all that booing. I assume you're talking about Russell Wilson. It's possible. Or walking out during at the beginning of overtime, flooding the concourse with people ushered out of the unbelievable. Gray-haired gaming. Also, welcome to Team Stokastic, man. That's odd. 16 months, but he just joined. Maybe he re-upped again. I don't know. Possible. All right. Wide receivers here then. If you're on Russell Wilson today and we're liking Russell Wilson, we got to talk about Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. We will get to the tight end grouping as well with Alberto out. That's pretty significant. How do you want to play? And Melvin Gordon's in, by the way, as expected. Like I said, Neil and I both agree. This could be great or bad or horrible for Melvin Gordon. Not sure there's an in-between.
Yeah.
But do you have any real preference for the top pass catchers? And then we'll get into the weeds with some of these tertiary options.
Yeah, I think Courtland Sutton is my favorite play on the entire slate. His projection on this slate is the highest of any wide receiver, and he's 8,400 to Mike Williams being 10,600 and only getting 2% more ownership. We've got Courtland Sutton at 41% to Mike Williams 39%. Sutton has the higher projection at more than $2,000 price discount. So I'm going to be playing a lot of Courtland Sutton here. The tools love him. As I said, I mean, his projection, just his raw projection looks great, but even in the Sims, we have him owned 13% of the captain spot, but we have him optimal 16% of the time. So he's got positive leverage in the captain spot. In the utility spot, we've got him owned 41% of the time, optimal 48% of the time. So, you know, at that price tag, and he has been extremely involved so far this year, and obviously we expect that to continue. He has been targeted 45 times so far this year. Jerry Jeudy is number 2 for the Broncos at 28 times. So Courtland Sutton is just targeted a ton. If we're thinking that Russell Wilson has a shot to have a good game, then I think Courtland Sutton is most likely going to as well.
Courtland Sutton is clearly the top option in this team, and he should be. Chargers secondary definitely better than their run defense. There's no denying that. Jerry Jeudy, though, stands out as one of these guys who I'm not really sure. He had that big, run after the catch in week 1 against Seattle for the touchdown, which was nice. Since then, he's been essentially a ghost, right? I mean, has Jeudy had a single, and this is not to say you stay away from Jeudy. It's just interesting to see. Oh, he scored against Las Vegas as well. Okay. He had a modest game there. KJ Hamler was pissed when Russ missed him in the end zone.
Slamming his helmet.
Yeah. On that slant. And slamming his helmet, pissed off. That game feels like forever ago, by the way.
It does.
Right? It doesn't feel like they played in week 5. But right. There's a lot of these narratives out there I've seen today. I've read on them too, like squeaky wheel gets the grease. I don't know. Maybe if Wilson's hands aren't also greased up, the ball might get there as well. But Hamler's not overly expensive. The problem is you're talking about a guy who, if he does get the grease, that could mean, 3 targets instead of 1.
That is true. Yeah, he's not. So I'll start with Jeudy. Yeah, I agree with you. Jeudy is a great boom bust option at 7,000. He doesn't get targeted nearly as much as Courtland Sutton, but he gets those long targets. So he has that home run potential any game. He's only 7,000. You get that price discount. So yeah, Jerry Jeudy, a great boom bust option. I do like KJ Hamler here. He played 50% of snaps for the Broncos in week 5. So picking up from that metric, he's only been targeted 5 times on the year. So like you said, even if he is getting more steam, that could mean just 3 targets. But yeah, as you alluded to, offensive coordinator for the Broncos said he has earned the right to get more opportunities. He's 3,000. I think he's a talented wide receiver. I think that he is a relative boom bust play as well. I think that, he gets some of those long targets as well. Speedy guy. So at 3,000, I'll be taking some shots there. I don't really want to buy into the coach speak because that's all it is. It's coach speak. Coaches lie all the time. They're always going to say, oh yeah, he's earned the right to get the opportunity, unless I guess sometimes they shit on their own players, but typically they're going to be saying, oh yeah, he's earned the right. It doesn't usually mean a ton, but if he's not going to be very high owned and he's only 3,000, I do have interest in KJ Hamler tonight.
I'll never forget when Scott Brooks said that, I forget which player it was. I'm not sure if he was still there when Rui was there, but he was like, yeah, this guy absolutely, it might've been Thomas Bryant, absolutely earned more playing time. Mind you.
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, here's what, mind you, at least in football, a quarterback's going through reads, there's coverage. It might be tough to get him the ball. So a coach might say that and mean it, but it just doesn't materialize. In basketball, if you say he's earned the right to more minutes, you're literally the one giving him those minutes. And then he just played less minutes for the rest of the season. So I hate coach speak sometimes, man.
Yeah, I get it. But I do too.
And in basketball, football, it's even more difficult because there's so many variables. But you're right. Hamler is cheap. He's definitely, and we're not projecting him for really any ownership either. What do we have him at, like 9% ownership in the utility?
Yeah, we got 9% utility, 0.3% in the captain spot. So he actually has negative leverage in our tools in the utility spot. Again, I think that I'm actually willing to go away from it here. The tools are obviously generally, more often than not, the tools are going to be correct. So I try not to go away from them too often, but I think this is a spot where I might just kind of buy into the narrative, think that because I do think that he's talented, he hasn't really done much yet. I think that there is a chance that he actually goes lower owned than this. And I think that his odds of success are maybe a little bit greater. So I think that I might actually be willing to go above that 9% on KJ Hamler, despite the negative leverage. But he actually has positive leverage in the captain spot where he's, not by a huge amount, 0.3% projected ownership, 0.6% optimal. That's pretty negligible, but I think I'll be taking some shots there as well.
All right. So I'm going to ask Neil a question that I think you guys will absolutely appreciate based on yesterday's winning lineup, but also his thoughts on if that type of build is applicable to today. But before we do, I got to let you guys know about a ridiculous promo. $200 over at BetMGM if you haven't signed up. It's yours for $10. Someone walks up to you on the street, goes, "Hey, pal, here's 10. Give me 200." Or no, other way around. Give me 10. I'll give you 200. You'd say, "Yes, sir." You'd look at him odd. You'd think he's a little strange, but once that 200 got broken out, you'd be like, "All right, let's do it." And then you run before he changes his mind. At BetMGM right now, if you sign up, Jordan, throw the link in chat. It's also in the description. They brought it back for hockey. They don't have it for football right now, but it actually does. It wouldn't matter if it was for fucking croquet at this point, because the $10 still turns into $200 no matter what. And your team doesn't even need to win. All you do, whether you like hockey or not, it doesn't matter, right? You like free money. You like having money in an additional book so you can get better odds. And this way you don't have to deposit $200 to get it. Use the link, sign up, take $10, put that $10 on any hockey team tonight to win, right? Any team. You do it now too. You're still getting in before the 7:00 games, but there's a late game. There's an 8:30 game. There's plenty of ways to do it. You could do it tomorrow if you want. $10 on any team to win, any money line. And all that needs to happen is any team tonight, not even in that game, scores a goal, that 10 turns into 200. Doesn't matter if your team wins or not. If your team wins, you still get paid out. So I would recommend betting some dogs in these spots, but it's $200. The simplest way to look at it, if you're on the fence, is, okay, I take $10, I get the free $200. I go on the worst run of my life and I lose all of it, right? I just a horrible, awful beats left and right. In the end, you're down $10. You go on a massive heater, opposite of being horrible. You go on a massive heater, talking, who knows? Build a bankroll up 4 or 5 figures by putting $10 in, throwing it on an NHL game. It's easy money. Take advantage of all these opportunities. We're always looking for free bets and easy money. This is the simplest way to do it. BetMGM, link in the description and link in the chat as well. Throw it in chat one more time. I saw someone ask about it, Jordan. All right. So here's my question for you, Neil. You saw the winning DraftKings lineup last night?
I'm trying to remember what it was.
All right. Well, I'll tell you this, the important part.
Yep.
It had a minimum salary, Ferguson.
Yep.
At captain, right?
Yep.
Minimum salary, captain was Ferguson. And he was pretty good. He scored, I think he had that like 5 for 40 or something, and a touchdown, 4 for 40 and a touchdown. And then the rest of the team was loaded with studs. Relatively speak to the slate. You had Devontae Adams, you had Jalen Hurts, you had AJ Brown, you had Ezekiel Elliott. I can't remember who the last one was. You guys get the point.
Miles Sanders, AJ Brown.
Miles Sanders, thank you.
Okay.
It was a solo win. And the most amazing part to me is the only weird thing they did, because they had chalk across the board outside of a minimum salary captain. It's not a likely outcome, but how willing or how often are you going to make lineups like that where you're running heavy chalk, but the one big differentiation, at captain makes all the difference?
So I have not actually done the math to see how much of their salary they used. It'd be interesting to me if they use the full salary cap. I would assume that they didn't because it is a unique lineup. I mean, yes, Jake Ferguson was low owned, but he was 0.35% owned, and every other player in this lineup was relatively chalky. So my guess is they left a little bit of salary on the table. If they left salary on the table, I think I'll have some of those lineups with guys that are just really low owned in the captain spot, jam a lot of chalk and leave a little bit of salary on the table. The problem is a lot of the times you can use these lineups where you have, the $200 player in the captain spot, then obviously $300 player in the captain spot, and then you jam in all the chalk or, a bunch of players to use the full salary cap. Then even with a really low owned captain, you can run into many duplicates just because a good portion of those 0.35% of lineups with him in the captain spot are going to be, doing so for the purpose of jamming in all the chalk. So I still would like to leave at least a little bit of salary on the table just to get a little bit unique. But in general, yeah, I have no issue with that.
Okay. I'm just seeing how much salary was used. 46.7. So he left 3,300.
Yeah. So that is something that I would do. I make those kind of lineups all the time. It's a great lineup.
It is. Yeah. Amazing. It's amazing that nobody duped that.
I know it looks like the kind of lineup that you would expect to be duped.
Yeah. Because you're leaving salary on the table, but you're not skimping on players anywhere outside of captain. Like you're leaving 3,300, but all you did was play a really cheap captain and everyone else was it pretty much went down the list of the most expensive players and just clicked add.
Yeah. So I want to address them. So PowerBooks asks, does that work on FanDuel also? So the difference between DraftKings and FanDuel is
big difference.
DraftKings has a salary multiplier. So it's, when you put a player into the captain spot, you essentially have to pay 1.5 times their salary to get that 1.5 times bonus for their fantasy points. On FanDuel, you don't get that kind of multiplier. So you don't really get any benefit from playing your cheap player in the MVP spot on FanDuel unless you actually think they're going to be the highest scoring player in the lineup. So typically it doesn't work as well on FanDuel just because you don't get that benefit from using the cheap guy in the MVP spot. It's just whoever's going to score the most points in the MVP spot on FanDuel.
For sure. And someone said Zeke was not chalk. You're right. Yeah, Zeke was actually less than I thought. Everyone else was 30 plus, 40, 56, 32. Zeke wasn't chalk. Yeah. But he also wasn't like the most insane play ever.
Yeah, it also someone else said CD Lamb, and it probably could have fit CD Lamb in there, so that's maybe why it didn't get quite as much.
Yeah,
wasn't duped at all.
I thought Zeke was a better play than Elliott Zeke was a better play than Lamb last night anyway, so I get it. Yeah. Eagles run defense isn't good, and Lee said that lineup won because of a busted third quarter. LOL, that's rare. Not when you're facing the Eagles, dude. Eagles third quarter defense just falls asleep. They just completely fall asleep every week. I don't know what the deal is. But anyway.
Also, it's worth noting that you always have to get lucky. Like every single time you see a winner, especially on these showdown sites, if you see a winner that wasn't duped a lot of times, it's typically because something has happened. But like injuries happen all the time. Things get weird in NFL. You just have to embrace some of that chaos.
No doubt. All right. Let's did you want to hit on any like secondary options in the passing game for Denver before we talk about these tight ends and then move on?
Among pass catchers, hang on, let me look real quick. Yeah.
By the way, almost 300 likes. Appreciate you guys. We only asked once, Neil. So that's good work.
That's great work.
Appreciate you.
I mean, Kendall Hinton is in play. They did call him up to the active roster. So at 4.3% projected ownership, I don't think we don't even have a projection on Kendall Hinton. Is he in our boom bust tool? I think that he is going to be active. Okay, so he is in our boom bust tool, so we must have a projection for him now. He looks like he's got some negative leverage, but I do think that Kendall Hinton is in play since he is active in this game. Maybe he'll get a little bit overlooked because they didn't call him up to the active roster on their last game, which was another primetime game, but he is active for this game. So I do think that Kendall Hinton is a little bit interesting. He was pretty active prior to not being called to the active roster. So he's kind of interesting. I guess you could play Tyree Cleveland, but I think I would rather play, of the two of them, I would rather play Kendall Hinton. And I think I would prefer KJ Hamler to either of them.
All right. Tight end position. You ready to get weird?
Let's get weird.
All right. Alberto's out. We had a lot of questions about Dulcich, and I think that's totally fine. I know Matt Gajewski is a fan of this guy. He's minimum salary. He's activated from the injured reserve. It's his NFL debut. This is another one of those spots where when you're getting guys as cheap as they are, whether it's him or even Sauber, it is not expensive. He's 2,000, right? That's not crazy expensive on this specific slate. It could make a huge difference, just like we saw with a influx tight end position yesterday. With Schultz out, Ferguson ended up being the guy.
Man, it's just so hard to decipher now with Dulcich coming in. I mean, it was already so hard to decipher, but we don't really know what they think of Dulcich, how ready they think he is for how much game action. Actually, I just want to call back to Kendall Hinton for a second. Before he was not activated for the last game, he had played 57% of snaps in week 4, 43% in week 3, and 76% in week 2. So he had been very active for the Broncos previously before he was not called up because he couldn't be called up from the practice squad again in week 5. So yeah, Kendall Hinton sort of interesting, but I'm just looking at snap counts right now. Eric Saubert, I think the pretty clear TE1 he played 56% of snaps in the last game for the Broncos. He's been targeted, I believe 12 times on the year to Albert O's 10. So he has been the most targeted tight end for the Broncos. Tomlinson doesn't, he plays good. He played 48% of snaps last game, but he's not targeted very frequently. Andrew Beck played 26%. Albert O now out. So I think that my favorite of the tight ends for the Broncos, my favorites are going to be Saubert and Dulcich, just because Saubert is the one who has, they've shown that they're willing to go to Saubert. We have him at 12.5% projected ownership. I don't know how much that will change, if at all, with Albert O out. Maybe that goes up. But I think he's likely to be the TE1 for this game. And then Dulcich would be the other one that I have interest in, just because, this preseason, they were talking about him like he might be competing for that starting tight end role for the Broncos. I think that he has that kind of talent, and he could, right away be involved in the passing game. He's only 200. So those are my two. I would go Eric Saubert and Greg Dulcich as more of a kind of a dart throw play.
Yeah, it makes sense because he's just so cheap at this spot. I get it. You're talking about a guy that's 80th overall. So maybe they plan on using, and Albert O has just been insanely underwhelming and he's not playing. So yeah, I get it. Those are going to be two spots that you're going to want to have on the radar for sure. Also, McManus, I know Alex Brown loves his kickers and showdowns. I'll tell you what though. Hey, a team that I mentioned it earlier, 21% red zone efficiency. Sure, you'd love your 50-yard field goals. I get that. But just the fact that they struggle to get into the end zone so much, even if you're kicking 30-yard field goals, it means that nobody else is scoring touchdowns. So he has 3 of 5 games. This guy has 3 field goals. Showdown slates that can make a difference.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I am totally on board for playing some kickers in Showdown. I'm looking at. I'm seeing Dustin Hopkins first, but I guess let me find Brandon McManus. Brandon McManus. Both have positive leverage. Yeah. Brandon McManus, 1% projected ownership in the captain spot, 2.3% optimal, 17% ownership in the utility spot, 18% optimal. So slight positive leverage on Brandon McManus in both spots. Yeah, I like it. I'll be playing plenty of Brandon McManus. As you say, it's a benefit to him if they can get to the red zone and not score. That's great for the kicker. So hopefully they can keep that up for Brandon McManus's sake. But then Dustin Hopkins looks even better in our single game tool, projected for 2% ownership in the captain spot, optimal 4% of the time, projected for 19% ownership in the utility spot, optimal 22% of the time. So pretty nice positive leverage on Dustin Hopkins as well. Kickers and defenses, it's hard. Kickers in particular, it's hard for me to take a strong stance on them, but when I see positive leverage in the tools, I'm likely to go over the field.
Did you see Harrison Butker's kick yesterday, the 62-yarder?
I did.
I swear that would have been good from 70.
Yeah, I believe they actually showed that it would have been good from 70.
Did they?
Yeah.
It hit the net 20 feet up.
Yeah.
From 62, like straight. That was amazing. I'm a big fan of long field goal attempts in the NFL. I actually think they're exciting.
Yeah, I do too. And I always cheer for kickers. I mean, unless it's going to hurt me from a financial standpoint, I always cheer for kickers because they just have so much of a spotlight on them. I feel bad for them when they miss big kicks.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Especially late, like game winning, as long as it's not against the Eagles.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's all them.
Yeah, exactly. All the pressure's on that
unless
one
it's
player.
a bad snap,
And you know that they feel like misfits, right? Like they're not everybody else is considered like a real football player. They're just kind of the nerd in the locker room. So like I kind of cheer for him.
Yeah, I get it. I'm with you actually. I always do. Yeah. And when they hit, I think the only one that isn't the nerd in the locker room and everyone knows he's just the man is Justin Tucker. Like,
yeah, sure.
Justin Tucker's so good and he's won them so many games that he could miss a field goal and no one's going to say a damn thing about that guy.
And he's the veteran in the locker room. I mean, he's been around for so long. So yeah, that's true.
But he's gone. That's a 70+ yarder. It was crazy. I wish it was further out. He would have had the record for sure. All right. And Broncos defense, I think Broncos defense is always in play. That's why I always play the unders in these games, Neil, because their offense stinks and their defense is elite.
We've got positive leverage in both spots. I mean, it's very neutral, to be honest, in both spots for the Broncos defense, but I'm willing to go there. I don't love the spot as much going against Justin Herbert, but it's a very solid defense. Yeah, for sure. I'm willing to play. We've got him 2% ownership in the captain spot, 2% optimal, 14% ownership in the utility spot, 14% optimal. So about as neutral as you can find for the Broncos defense. And it's obviously a tough spot going up against this Chargers offense, but yeah, I'm willing to go there.
All right. It always takes us a little longer to break down the Broncos than the other team on any slate because they're a mess.
Yeah.
And the Albert O news is going to throw a wrench into the works as well. Also, let's talk about the Chargers too, and we'll build a lineup before we get out of here. If you heard Neil talking about the tools, the boom bust tools and the top plays tool where you're getting leverage scores, you're getting optimal captain percentages, you're getting ownership in the utility spot, the captain's everything, like all in one page. You're getting everything you need to be successful. This is the tool that you use for all of the, whenever you're having these monster games, you're using the top plays tool for Showdown.
Yep.
Yeah. Exactly. And the top stacks tool for the main slate, for baseball, for hockey, for all of our sports. I mentioned this because we got a promo going right now. Hardwood, not hardwood, hardwood, all caps, all one word, hardwood. Jordan, throw that up on the screen, baby. Let's go. And throw that into the chat as well. Links in the description too. $1 a day for 10 days. Not just football, every single sport, all of the tools. Not Fantasy Cruncher. We don't own Fantasy Cruncher, obviously, but all of our tools. And we got the new lineup generator, which is sick. You can export, CSV export up to 20 lineups. You can filter through as many as you'd like. We got it up and running for basketball now too. Just, I don't know, ownership, player projections, top stacks, all of these tools. If there's contests for these sports on sites, on these DFS sites, we have content for them. We have tools for them. MMA, PGA, NBA, NFL, all of them. All of them. I won't waste my breath. It's a sick deal. Probably the best one we run all year, to be completely honest with you. $10 gets you 10 days in unlimited all access to everything on the site. Stochastic plus Platinum. It's an awesome deal. Take advantage of it if you want, or just go to stochastic.com/promos and click it. But you could use this link too as well. That would probably be the easiest way to make this one work. Check it out and follow along these tools. Use these tools. All right. Chargers. Let's start with Ekeler in the backfield here. First off, Joshua Kelly is just very expensive for his role. Ekeler is the most expensive on the slate, but he's also coming off 2 monstrous performances.
Yeah, I mean, Ekeler looks phenomenal. He looks in our tools. He's a lot better in the utility spot than he is in the captain spot. I think that's just because of the price tag. It's just when you add on that 1.5 multiplier to the $11,400 price tag for Austin Ekeler, it becomes a little bit much. We've got him 16% owned in the captain spot with an 8% chance of being optimal. I'm still probably going to be not far under the field on Ekeler in the captain spot just because he's so good and he can score without bringing anybody else along with him. There's a lot of reason to love Ekeler, but he looks a lot better and I'll probably have him more often. I'll probably be above the field in the utility spot. We've got him at 47% ownership, 52% chance of being optimal in the utility spot. Yeah, I mean, he's so involved. I don't really know what else you need to say about Austin Ekeler. He has run 113 routes already this year and been targeted 33 times. That is second of anybody on the team for the Chargers. And he obviously rushes a lot as well. So a lot to love about Austin Ekeler. He is the most expensive player on the slate, if I'm remembering. Yep, the most expensive player on the slate. So, but he's worth it.
He's absolutely worth it. And hey, listen, the Denver Broncos have been, for the most part, pretty good against running backs. The one game that they really got carved up was that Las Vegas game against Josh Jacobs, right? Josh Jacobs ran all over them. All of their other games, listen to the total scores in these games. This is not their score. These are the total scores. 21, 21, 25, and 33. So that was surely an outlier, but they gave up 212 rushing yards in that game with Josh Jacobs.
Nuts. Yeah.
Pretty remarkable stuff. And it's not like Las Vegas has the Eagles offensive line either.
Right.
Gave up 106 rushing yards last week to Indy, which, isn't much, and it's overtime, but they also were running Deion Jackson and Phillip Lindsay out there. So there's that. I wouldn't say they're impenetrable. I'd say their secondary is a lot better, but Ekeler's just so good, and he's going to get work regardless of game script. No matter how this game goes, whether you can't run or you can, he'll be out there getting opportunities. I'm with you, man. I don't really see any way to get away from it, quite frankly. What I do find interesting is the passing game. We'll get to Herbert, but with Mike Williams, I don't know how much Pat Surtain he's going to see. Surtain's such a beast, though. I mean, this guy, fantastic. Like, I don't expect shadow coverage, but I would assume that he sees a lot of them. I do think it could open up some opportunities for Josh Palmer as well, who's been a pretty steady presence in this offense ever since Keenan Allen went down, and Keenan Allen's out today as well.
Yeah, so I mean, starting with Mike Williams, I don't really factor in those individual matchups all that much in general, just because, things part of what offenses are trying to do is, throw off what the defense is trying to do. So even if they want Surtain to be on Mike Williams, obviously the Chargers are going to try to mix it up so that doesn't happen and run cross routes and stuff to avoid that. So it's not a huge concern for me. I like Mike Williams. The downside to Mike Williams, as I've said, is that he just doesn't even project as well as Courtland Sutton, and he's a lot more expensive than Courtland Sutton, and he's getting close to the same ownership as Courtland Sutton. So he's not my favorite play on this slate. That doesn't mean I want to play like none of Mike Williams. He is obviously the wide receiver one for the Chargers with Keenan Allen out. And he's got the better quarterback throwing to him. So there is a lot to like about Mike Williams. I just think that in general, I'm probably going to be above the field on Sutton and below the field on Mike Williams. That doesn't mean, again, I'm not going to be playing none. I'll probably be playing hopefully around 30% is what I'm going to shoot for Mike Williams, which is below the field, but still a good amount that if he does have a big game, I will have some shots there. But yeah, I think that I'm going to be playing some Josh Palmer. I'm going to be playing some DeAndre Carter. Just looking at the latest game for the Chargers, DeAndre Carter played 59% of snaps. He's going to be interesting for me. Josh Palmer did play 73% of snaps. I think that they're both certainly in play. Going to go back to our tool to see what kind of ownership we've got on both of them. DeAndre Carter, we've got it. He's actually one of the more positively leveraged plays on this.
He's the highest.
Is he? Okay. Yeah. Overall, the highest. So we've got DeAndre Carter, 4% projected ownership at the captain spot, 7% optimal, 23% projected ownership in the util spot, 31% optimal. So,
sorry, Neil, I didn't update it. He was the highest last update. Now it's Courtland Sutton.
Okay. But still, he's up there, and he's not getting. He's a pretty good leverage play, not getting a ton of ownership. So I do like DeAndre Carter quite a bit. And then where is Josh Palmer? Yeah, Josh Palmer, slight positive leverage in both spots as well. He's 5,800. We've got him at 5% projected ownership in the captain spot, 6% optimal, 23% ownership and optimal rate in the util. So neutral in the util spot, positive leverage in the captain spot. My guess, just because of his price tag and because I like to leave salary on the table, I'm going to be getting to both of these guys kind of a good amount because they do allow you to leave a little bit of salary on the table. And they both are, they're going to have roles in this offense. So I actually like both of these guys quite a bit.
Since week 2, you've got Gerald Everett with the third highest. And speaking of Everett here, because we want to move on to tight ends. Third highest target share on the team, 16%. That's really not that bad, especially on a team that's going to throw the ball a lot. I mean, you have to consider all of that if you're looking at this and going, it's not 25%. But yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert throws. He threw 48 times against Kansas City, 45 against Jacksonville, 39 against Houston. He definitely, they're zipping the ball around quite a bit. Everett has been one of those guys who is getting some looks in the red zone. We've seen that. I can't say that his targets are as reliable as a Mike Williams, I don't think anyone would assume that they should be, but he's been pretty good in Allen's absence. Yeah, Allen's not a tight end, but you still got to find people to throw the ball to. And Allen's definitely been one of the preferred targets, Everett's definitely been one of the preferred targets of Justin Herbert in Allen's absence.
Yeah, Everett has been fantastic, and he has been consistently just used plenty. I believe that Donald Parham is going to be active for this game. So I don't know if that is going to change all that much for us, especially given how good Gerald Everett has been.
I thought he was active last week.
Oh, was he active last week?
Okay, I might be wrong. Hold on.
I may have missed that. Yeah, he was actually. And he played 38% of snaps. Okay, I totally missed that Parham was active last week. So I'm going to have actually a lot of interest in both of these guys. Gerald Everett has just been used so much. Donald Parham does cut into his usage probably a little bit with that 38% usage last week. That makes it a little bit harder for me to use Trey McKitty too. Trey McKitty actually still played 51% of snaps. So I guess they've been doing a lot of 2 tight end sets because they're playing more than 100% total. But yeah, I would say Gerald Everett is obviously the safest option for the Chargers, and I will have a good amount of Gerald Everett. We've got him at 26% projected ownership. We've got him a little bit of positive leverage in both spots. 5% projected ownership in the captain spot, 6% optimal, 24% projected ownership in the util spot, 27% optimal. So Gerald Everett looks great. The price is right. He's used well. He's got Justin Herbert throwing him the ball. A lot to love about Gerald Everett. But I do think that I'm going to have, Donald Parham is one of those guys who doesn't really do anything until he does do something. And he is a red zone target. They like to throw to him in the end zone. So Donald Parham at 1,400 at very little ownership, even with we do have negative leverage on Donald Parham. This is actually the first time I'm realizing that he's active and that he played in the last game. I actually do think that I'm going to be going to a good amount of Donald Parham.
All right. I can appreciate it. Man, he had a wicked injury last year.
It was awful. That was, that concussion.
In the end zone. Did he catch that ball? I'm going to say no, right?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so either. Eric Traub, thanks for the super chat, man. He said, once you gentlemen get done with the Chargers, can I please get the Showdown Samurai's favorite utility player under 10% owned on DraftKings to take a shot on? First of all, yes. Second of all, don't step on my toes changing up nicknames, Eric. I mean, I appreciate you're shooting us some super chats here, but come correct with the names, man. Don't try and be changing things up on us. Does have a nice ring to it.
Funny one though. Yeah.
Yeah, does have a nice ring. I'm not going to lie, but careful. All right, Neil, favorite utility player under 10% owned on DraftKings to take a shot on?
It's a really good question.
Actually, a couple decent ones.
There are actually several that I have some interest in. KJ Hamler, we talked about as a guy that I'm probably going to be above the field on at 9% projected ownership. Mike Boone getting no ownership. We do have Melvin Gordon active, so he's not going to be the lead back, but I'll probably take some shots on Mike Boone. Just my favorite though, that is a good question. I'm almost tempted to say that it is Donald Parham now that I see that he is active and that he played a significant role last week. I know that he's such an end zone threat. I think that I haven't mentioned him in any content that I've done all day, and suddenly I'm fixated on maybe Donald Parham is interested, this red zone threat. But I might still go. I'll probably go Latavius Murray 1, Donald Parham 2. All
right. Let's go to another super chat here. Jordan, thank you for shooting those over. Let's go. Jillian, Everett or Palmer for 3-entry max in the utility?
Good question there. Let's see. In the utility, I'll just say this. We've got Everett as the optimal in the utility more frequently than Palmer. They're about the same salary, so I'll go there.
All right. And Ryan, favorite captain tonight for cash games? That should be a relatively easy one.
Yes. So that
I know you're a tournament player, but
I am a tournament player. So it is going to depend on like the build that you can make there, but it would probably be Cortland Sutton just relative to, let me see.
Yeah, all of that would make sense.
Yeah. So we have, it's a little bit tough but they all project fairly similarly, and you can save so much money by playing Cortland Sutton. So my guess would be that it would be Cortland Sutton at captain, and then you can jam in, Herbert, Ekeler in the utility spots, but kind of depends on the build. It's going to be one of those guys. You're going to want to have one of the more expensive, one of those three, I think, probably in the captain spot.
And hey, you got Live Before Lock coming up right after us. Neil and I are going to build a lineup here, but stick around. They're coming up right after taking you all the way up to lock. So do not go anywhere if you haven't gone anywhere yet, because you got Matt Savoca, Matt Gajewski, going all the way up to 8:15. All right, let's build a lineup. Before we do those, shout out to our sponsor, No House Advantage. You guys already know we've got all the free tools. We got all the No House Advantage tools, from the No House Advantage lineup generator to the No House Advantage projections to Odds Shopper to the player prop tool to just put you in a position to win over there. Also, up to $50 first match deposit bonus when you sign up. Sick format that they've got going. They took DFS. I don't use the term revolutionize something because I've seen way too many sites say that. And you're like, no, you actually just made it considerably worse. And now you're saying it's the greatest thing ever. What Nas Advantage did is actually pretty sick because they didn't try and up the game and make it wilder. They just said, oh, what if we take lineups, you build lineups with player props and without salaries. So you're doing the same thing. All of the research that you use throughout the day, throughout the week is exactly the same. And you have all of our tools for free over at Stokastic.com. And you're building lineups, whether it's football, baseball, basketball. This is the biggest thing too, massive overlay over there. Yeah. I think it filled 48% yesterday in the main contest. 48%. Dude, it's as free as money gets right now. You're just building lineups with player props. The ones you like the most go at the top. The ones you're least confident in go at the bottom. They get the least points. Again, at the top, you like them the most. They get the most points. A lot of different ways you can play it. You can play against the house too. 20 extra entry if you hit all your picks. But some of these contests, playing against the field as you would anywhere else, very cool format. Paying out big money up top, and they're not even close to filling right now, Neil.
Yeah, and you can play them in Minnesota where you can't do sports betting. Yeah. You can play these contests. So that's it's fun to be able to, wet my whistle a little bit.
Yeah, it is. It's awesome. And like I said, NFL lineup generator and projections for No House Advantage over at Stochastic for free. Take advantage of it. NoHouseAdvantage.com. Use the link if you want to get that $50 first match deposit bonus. It's in chat. It's in the description. Bing, bang, boom. All right, Neil, we got to do this quick. Turn this one over.
Yeah.
I'll let you go first. We'll go Millie Maker here. Who are you going at captain?
I'm going to go Cortland Sutton. Actually, I want to answer the super chat. Jasmine Johnson just asked, fave captain for FanDuel. My answer is Russell Wilson. Just looking at the tools, he has very positive leverage, and he is the most frequently the optimal captain. So regardless of format, I think Russ Wilson is my favorite for the MVP spot on FanDuel. But for DraftKings, we're rebuilding. I'm going to go Cortland Sutton.
All right, so we got to rip through this one. You want Cortland Sutton at captain. Sounds good to me. I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to throw Ekeler in here.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not cheap, but we can make it work. There's some value out there for sure.
Yeah, for sure. We can make it work. I'm going to go all the way down to DeAndre Carter.
All right, we're going Carter here. High leverage score over on our top plays tool. I will go with, all right, so we're in good shape here. I'll do this for you, Neil. I'll go Russell Wilson.
All right. Russell Wilson. Interesting.
We got 6,700 per player remaining for the last two.
All right. So I'm going to let you get as weird or, play whoever you want. I'm going to go, as I said, to Donald Parham in a flex spot.
So we're leaving some. Okay.
So we're leaving a little bit of salary. I mean, we don't have to leave that much on.
No. We don't have to at all. So I feel like in a spot such as this, we almost have to go Herbert because you have Ekeler, Carter, and Parham.
That's true.
Right. I would imagine this lineup will be used, but it gives you an idea of what we can work with. And that's what we're doing here. We're not, on the fly building the best lineup possible. We're just going through what is doable. And that's one of them. So appreciate you guys watching as always. Did we get the 500 thumbs up? 434 thumbs up. All right, before this next show flips over, can we do 500? I think it's doable, Neil.
It's doable. That's a reasonable ask.
It's a reasonable ask. 66.
And I believe in our audience.
Me too. We got the best audience out there. I don't say that just to, ingratiate myself. I say that because it's the truth. All right. Appreciate you guys. We'll catch you back here. Have a great rest of the night. Good luck. Matt Savoca, Matt Gajewski coming up next. And shout out to Jordan Klein. Give Jordan Klein a hand, as always, for producing this show. He hates when I do that.
Stokastic YouTube channel, guys. My name's Jeff Ulrich, bringing you a little Monday Night Football action for Week 6 of the NFL season. We're going to be talking No House Advantage in this video. If you haven't checked out No House Advantage, Great site, couple different ways to play there. They have the pick'em contest where you're creating, multiple DFS lineups, playing against other people, using those props to create different values, and then putting in a lineup just like a traditional DFS site would. And then you also have their versus the house contest where you're creating your own parlay style tickets, creating with big multiplier type payouts. And if you're new to No House Advantage, you can use promo code Stokastic to sign up there. That's going to give you a $50 match deposit bonus. Promo code Stokastic, guys. Again, if you're new to the site, definitely check that out. But let's talk Monday Night Football. We got the Broncos at the Chargers, about a 4.5 spread on the board right now. Chargers are obviously favored there. Bit of a lower point total, 45.5 last time I looked. So it's not what I'd call overly low, but it's not overly high either, right in the middle there. And we have a situation. We got obviously AFC West division game. And yes, we do have the Denver Broncos on the slate again. So we'll have to see how that's going to go. A lot of player personnel with the Broncos up in the air right now. And just one more thing about No House Advantage, guys. A 10K to first contest up on No House right now. 20K guaranteed prize pool for Monday Night Football. And over at Stokastic.com, we do have free projections for No House Advantage. So check those out after you're done watching those videos. We're going to lean on the Stokastic projections for some of our picks as well. So I'll be mentioning those as we go. But as I mentioned before, lots going on here. We got the Denver Broncos in primetime again. So we're going to start there with our picks. I'm going to give 3 or 4 of our top picks here just to get you started for No House Advantage on this Monday night slate. Let's go to Russell Wilson, the man of the moment. Everyone's favorite guy right now. I mean, he's cooking. No, I'm just joking. Everyone dislikes Russ, but you know what? I like Russ tonight. Over 230.5 passing yards. Look, he's been dealing with a bit of an injury. He hasn't played well. There's no doubt about it. But we do lean over on Russell Wilson's total here, and I think it makes sense. The Chargers as a secondary, just allowing a lot of garbage yards. 246 to Davis Mills, 230 to Brissett. These are not top-end quarterbacks or offenses. Wilson, as I said, the news is he's getting healthier. Definitely didn't look right the last couple of weeks, but I think a week off, or a longer week, a rest, and then him coming into another primetime game. It's a lot of pride with a guy like Russell Wilson. And you look at this game setup as well. The Broncos are underdogs in the road. Typically, this is a spot where you're expecting the visiting team to be passing late.
What does he say? Bronco Country, let's ride. And we are live before lock, week 6, Monday Night Football. Los Angeles and Denver. Hopefully we have a good game, but Denver has not given us any of those lately. I'm really hoping that Justin Herbert, Austin Ekeler, and the rest of the playmakers on the Los Angeles side can fix some of that. And here to break it all down, right up to lock, it's Matt Gajewski. We're the law firm, Matt and Matt. Follow him at Matt_Gajewski. How are you this fine Monday evening? I'm doing great, man. I was talking with Lofty this morning, and him and I said exactly the same thing you just did now with this Denver team playing another showdown in primetime slate. Hopefully it's just, all right, there's an explosive offense on the other side. Even if LA gets up early, maybe that will just propel Denver to some fantasy success. And I mean, I still think they have it in them. I have some guarded optimism, but we're here to break it all down. And it's an interesting slate.
Guarded optimism. That's fair to say about Mr. Unlimited. I just watched that video again. I just cringed for the entire 60 seconds. Mr. Unlimited. Anyway, we got a good one. We got a good show. We got a good showdown to break down. And we're brought to you today by No House Advantage. We got an awesome offer with the start. It's like one of the most wonderful times of the sports year. We got NBA starting back up tomorrow, NHL. We, of course, are rocking on with all the good NFL DFS, the fantasy football stuff. But I digress. We got 2 quarterbacks here who at one point or another, either now or a few years ago, were considered top 5 at their position. Why don't we just dig into that? The quarterback position is not that difficult to break down. It's how do you see Russell Wilson breaking out of this slump, even with that hurt shoulder?
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out how much to account for the injury, with the lat being what is actually like pulled here. Like that's not an injury I'm really familiar with and haven't seen it a lot coming up on NFL injury reports, but he was full in practice. So they must not be too concerned about aggravating if they're going to have him go out there and practice in full. So I'm mostly viewing this as an excuse for Russell Wilson rather than something that's actually hindering him. But with that said, assuming this is just any sort of small sample blip and he can get even close to like his career efficiency numbers, even like 75% of them, he's probably underpriced in this slate. You just look at who's ahead of him. It's mostly the Chargers guys, and I think for good reason at this point. But there's a lot of stink on the Russell Wilson name. For DFS purposes, I think he is a pretty strong buy low here, considering he's a quarterback position priced below a couple skill position players.
Yep. A quarterback on a one-game slate with the upside of Russell Wilson that has that salary discount is interesting to me, especially when people are getting more and more nervous. Yeah, I feel that same way too, guys, but that is what's making me a little bit more inclined to go here. And we know fundamentally quarterbacks on a one-game slate have that upside. Certainly in cash games, you probably still have to go to Russell Wilson today. Hasn't looked good on the field. 21st in Football Outsiders pass DVOA, 19th in yards per attempt. We still haven't projected for within 4 or 5 fantasy points on DraftKings and FanDuel of Justin Herbert. Even when you add that 1.5 point modifier, it's still not looking tremendously different from a median perspective. What would you say the ceiling probability is for a player like Wilson? And then, of course, we'll go to the other side with Herbert, who has a tough matchup himself against a good Denver defense.
Yeah, I think the ceiling probability is still there. If I were ranking the players on this slate, just in terms of raw projection, he's probably still 2 or 3. Like he's really close there. But ultimately, this is a salary game we're playing. And if I'm playing Russell Wilson and the captain, it's going to mostly be for leverage at this point, just because of that kind of gross attachment to his name at this point. But he's not even really providing a lot of leverage there. If you look at the back end in our tools, it's mostly coming in the utility spot. So it kind of depends on construction for me. If I am just looking one for one between these guys, it's still Herbert as the quarterback I want to get to, with just 1,000 separating them. In my opinion, that gap's not enough, but I'll be trying to play a lot of lineups with 2 of these guys, of course.
Actually, that was the very first thing I noticed about the salary, that is the difference or the lack thereof of these 2 quarterbacks, especially considering the perception we have of a player like Justin Herbert. Again, you're only paying 1,000 more in salary if you're considering DraftKings. I should mention that Russell Wilson in both the captain and the utility spot has a positive leverage score. Again, we're talking about a quarterback on a one-game slate. They're very viable. But Justin Herbert here, I don't know how you can say he doesn't look like the better quarterback unless you're saying that Denver's defense, who is top 5 in yards allowed per game, as in toughest to pass against, is just going to hit the tipping point and just stop and shut down this Los Angeles offense, which doesn't have Keenan Allen tonight.
No, that could happen. I mean, it's a good Denver defense. They've been up and down a little bit to start the year, but I like their pass rush. There's some injuries and illnesses on the offensive line for LA. That could be a mismatch that they exploit. But at the end of the day, it's not like Justin Herbert's had a good offensive line throughout his career. His skill position players, he's played without Keenan Allen a lot. And he's also played games without Mike Williams. And he's consistently been a talent elevator playing with, the DeAndre Carters, Josh Palmer. So if he's done it before, I'll bank on him doing it again here. Plus, I like the way this coaching staff is composed. I still believe in Brandon Staley, but he won't have as much to do with this. Anyway, all that to say, I think they can minimize some of the risk on that offensive line, getting the ball out of his hands quickly. They have a really nice chess piece in Austin Ekeler, who we'll talk about, who creates tons of mismatches. So I know if you want to dive really deep into the player personnel, we could be like, all right, maybe they put Surtain on Mike Williams, and then you have to rely on Palmer and Carter, guys we don't necessarily like. Well, they still have Ekeler and they still have Everett, who create mismatches in that pass game. So I'm going to fall back on Herbert still. He's going to be heavily owned for a good reason. In my opinion, not owned enough, and our tools seem to agree.
We're also talking about a pretty significant difference in terms of, these coaches' philosophies translating to just a solidly different amount of pass attempts per game. Justin Herbert sitting at 40 pass attempts per game, 4th highest in the NFL. Russell Wilson, 34 passes a game, 14th in the NFL. If you look at pass rate over expectation, Los Angeles significantly higher. In the red zone, Justin Herbert continues to pass. Two weapons like Williams and Ekeler, like you said. And the one thing I will say is I don't have any qualms about playing Justin Herbert and playing the Denver defense tonight, because I think you can have situations where Herbert and the offense actually get things done from a production standpoint, but they make enough mistakes. You know, what I'm seeing, number 2 in player profilers danger plays, 17 this year, top 12 in interceptable passes so far. Herbert could make some mistakes here. And like you said, if they don't get the ball out of his hands quickly, then Denver's line is coming for sure. I just don't see a situation where Herbert falls completely on his face, unless you say there is a case where Denver's defense is truly that good tonight.
Yeah, I don't see that being the case. And you laid out a really good outline for Denver's defense being awesome and it not mattering. We've seen Jameis Winston quite a bit in our day now. A lot of times interceptions, turnovers, they're not the end of the world for your opposing offense as long as they get the ball right back and still are capable of moving it, which Los Angeles is. So I'm with you there. I think you could play the defense and Herbert.
Hey, Jordan Klein, can you help out with the things in chat? Thank you. You're the best. Thank you, producer Jordan. Behind the glass, right as I was asking him, as usual. We appreciate you, man. We appreciate you all hanging out. We have over 2,000 hanging out. Let's get those likes up as well. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. You guys know what to do. We're truly in mid-season form at this point. And I do have to tell you about that offer that gets you $1 a day for 10 days as the basketball season starts. I mean, that promo code Hardwood, I mean, it just writes itself, basically. All one word. Hardwood gets you $10 access, not to the NBA, not just to the NFL, every single thing that we do over at Stokastic. So if they got contests for DFS, we got projections and we got content for you. It's just $10 for 10 days. Again, that promo code just rolls off the tongue. Hardwood. And of course, we appreciate you following Matt at Matt_Gajewski, and me, you know, if you want to, at Draftaholic. Anything else at the quarterback position? Maybe a player that, or excuse me, one of the players that you think has a higher chance of hitting their ceiling tonight. You know, people are really just trying to balance Russell Wilson of new being pretty low ceiling and the Los Angeles defense being worse than Denver versus the fact that Herbert's been the much better player this year and Denver's defense being the tougher matchup.
Yeah, for ceiling, I'll just fall back on the better player in Herbert. And one change I think we can bank on going forward with Wilson is he's not running. That was a big staple of his game in the past. Sure. Not really from a ceiling perspective, but it did elevate his floor. And then his ceiling, he generally got there through the pass, but he's not running at all. And I don't see that changing.
About a 5% chance for Justin Herbert compared to Russell Wilson of being a top 2 to 6 player appears in the optimal. Herbert does more than Wilson as well. We skip on over to the running back position where Melvin Gordon is banged up but active. Mike Boone is a player that is priced kind of high, to be honest, but could get a decent role here. And then you still got Latavius Murray, who's just come over in the last few weeks, maybe utilized more. Truly the best running back by a country mile is Austin Ekeler, who, regardless of game script, is going to be utilized heavily from the Los Angeles Chargers. How are you planning on utilizing Ekeler in this slate?
Yeah, I love Ekeler. I think the question with him comes down to not, do we want to play Ekeler or not, but where's the best way to utilize such a dynamic player because he is expensive. So I fall back on our tools right now. It looks like he's coming in fairly owned over, to be expected. And where can we potentially gain the leverage with him? He's actually a little under-owned in the utility spot by the looks of it, based on our tools, and if our ownership is correct. And then maybe potentially a little bit over-owned in the captain spot here, which I think makes sense. There's a lot of stink on some of the other elite players up at the top. We just talked about Russell Wilson. I think a lot of people are going to just be choosing between Ekeler and Herbert as their premier captain. And one of them, we're projecting to go slightly under-owned. One we're projecting to go slightly over-owned, and that would be Ekeler.
I think that's a very fair assessment, but at the same time, if there's one area this Broncos defense hasn't been elite, it's their run defense. Now, if you're building a defense, you want them to be an elite pass defense and pass rush before you focus on the rush. In fact, you'll sacrifice that for an elite pass defense. And that's pretty much what we see right now. The Broncos pass defense, second in Football Outsiders pass DVOA and 8th in yards allowed per pass attempt, but they're just 15th in rush DVOA and 15th in yards allowed per rush attempt. Ekeler gets it done in a lot of ways here. And one thing I really like about Ekeler is the fact that if they get down 3 touchdowns, let's say Herbert does have a multi-turnover game and a pick 6, and things are going catastrophically wrong. Things can happen like that in a 1-game slate. Ekeler's still going to be on the field, still going to be used in 2-minute drill situations, could still have that 10-target game. He's second in the NFL in total targets, up to first in fantasy points per game, 8th in expected fantasy points per game. So he's not even outperforming his expectation all that much. I know what our tools say, but I really think that Austin Ekeler is just an incredibly dynamic piece of this puzzle. I know I'm going to have to use him uniquely and get unique with the rest of my lineup, even if I use him at the captain spot where our tools simply don't like him. I think I like him a little bit more. What about the Denver side here? Talk to me about Melvin Gordon versus Boone versus Murray.
So I agree with you 100% on Ekeler. Everything from a football perspective, like you can't really poke holes in his game. He's awesome. It just comes down to your personal decision on where you want to use him. And I think both are fine, depending on the way you decide to intelligently build lineups. Denver's tough to get to because it's projected to be at the very least a 2-way timeshare. At the worst, it could be 3, depending on how much Latavius Murray gets involved. And none of them are priced to play accordingly. Melvin Gordon at 8.2K. He's more expensive than Judy, who's going to be on the field more, seeing a similar workload, just it comes in a different way. Mike Boone's not priced to play. He's at 4,800. That's more expensive than like some kickers. And we honestly don't know what his role is. I think it could range anywhere from like 30 to 50%, maybe even less. And that would be if Latavius Murray gets on the field. The issue with Murray now is at 1.6K, I did have some interest in playing him this morning, but the way the injuries have broken out in inactives for Denver, you're not going to get a lot of Murray. So I think the best thing we can say about him is he'll provide leverage. You can't really project him with any confidence, but say he does play 25% of the snaps or a little bit more, that's where you could potentially gain some leverage on the field, I think.
Absolutely. And I mean, look, if you just come over to a new team and you immediately get thrown into the fire, play 45% of snaps, run 10 routes, get 11 carries, a target, and 65 total yards, you probably are a player who's that was his game with the previous team. Oh my gosh. I realize now that was
notable though. He is old, but he's got a little bit of juice.
Yeah. But I realize I don't want to say that was his first game with the new team. That was his last game before he got moved. So the super chat we get from my filler arc kind of goes into this. Latavius Murray at captain. I lost that lineup, right? I can almost hear Neil Orfield talking from last hour saying weird things happen on 1-game slates. We've certainly seen weirder things than, say, a starting running back or 2 go down, leaving the third stringer to get everything in the second half. That could absolutely happen.
Yeah, it could. I'm not going to be playing him in the captain. And it just comes down to alternatives. So if you want to play a really cheap guy in the captain spot, with Murray, you essentially need 2 things to go right. You probably need an injury ahead of him for him to receive a workload capable of outscoring some of the other mid-price guys, or guys that are around mid-price. Like, for example, KJ Hamler's down there. He's nearly a full-time player in this offense. No, he's not going to be targeted a ton, but if he catches 1 or 2 deep balls, he probably outscores Latavius Murray straight up, and he's the captain you want. And then you also have to fade like different builds. So let's say Latavius Murray has a decent game, one that might be captain viable. Well, if somebody else just receives a condensed opportunity share like a Jerry Judy or a Cortland Sutton, that construction still could beat yours out too. So you kind of have to win 2 ways. You have to get the right construction, and then you have to land on the right punt play too, which is not something I like to do unless you can really guarantee a lot of opportunity for these cheap guys. And with Murray, you just can't guarantee that.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a very, very large field play, but
yeah, like Monday, or excuse me, last night, today's Monday. It was the Jake Ferguson captain that won. Well, he was filling in directly at the tight end position at the Stone Min as the starter, going to be in a rotation with Peyton Hendershot, but you could actually bank on his role in the offense. We've seen him do it. You can't do that at all with Murray.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense to me, but we appreciate the super chat, my filler arc, followed up by a solid $20 super chat. Doug, hey, thanks, man. We really appreciate it. Never miss a Showdown show with Matt G. Yeah, that's a good call,
thank
guys.
you.
That's a really good call. Who is the safest floor tonight under 3.3K? Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work.
I think there's two guys in consideration. I had this debate myself, and I used our projections to break this tie. Number one is DeAndre Carter. Number two is KJ Hamler. Those are the guys that are going to be on the field quite a bit for these two teams below that 3K mark. DeAndre Carter, mainly the slot receiver for the Chargers. KJ Hamler occupies the same role for Denver. Volatile in terms of targets there, but I think our projections side with Carter because he's on the team with the higher implied team total, the better quarterback. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm going to side there. Breaking the tie between them, I'll take DeAndre Carter.
Here's someone who I'm surprised to see, and we got to get to this tight end position because it's actually very interesting. But right now, 2K Eric Saubert, based on some previous usage, I know people are going to go to the new rookie hotness, but he actually shows up as the optimal utility play in 15% of lineups. So if I'm throwing my 2 cents in there, my 2K could actually be Eric Saubert, but I think there is quite a bit of variability when it comes to Denver tight end usage tonight. We'll be sure to get into that. Anything else at the running back position? I guess we got to talk about Josh Kelly, who's just inordinately expensive. But if something were to happen to Ekeler, this is still a player who, jury's still out, but he might actually just be good.
Yeah, you brought up the one thing you need to think about here is price. The only case you can make for him is leverage in the millie.
Yeah, I think it's that simple because he's a 20 to 25% snap share player, maybe 35 if you're lucky, but at 6,400, no thank you. Same with Sony Michel. They're almost priced in a way that maybe Austin Ekeler would miss this game. And then Xander Horvath, A+ name, has been used at the goal line, has a touchdown this year. He just feels like, an inevitable showdown touchdown kind of guy that you could never actually predict, right?
Yeah, he's like, I don't know, your Alec Ingold touchdown scorer, like couple snaps. But if you want to look at him as a player, he played running back in college. He's not always been a fullback. He just was like, in college, you see, because of recruiting limitations for some of these teams, guys get played sort of out of position and they change when they're in the pros. He's that. He's a big, like, fullback, running back, hybrid player. So he was used as a fullback in college and he's made the full transition to the pros. But all that to say, he can run a little bit. He's not just a pure grinder. He's carried the ball a lot in his career.
I'm actually looking at it. He's got a really unique athletic profile because he runs a 4.66, which is about 25th percentile, but it's not so egregiously slow that you can't succeed. Obviously, he's got that hybrid position. Man did 31 bench press at the combine. It's 99th percentile. Seems strong. And like you said, he's got this weird usage. We've seen him get a couple snaps here and there. What he had 9. It's very sparing, but it's been in the playbook at the very least. Anything else at the running back position before we move on to wide receiver?
No, I think we're ready.
All right. Awesome. I do want to give a shout out. I know they did last hour, but No House Advantage, they're awesome. First of all, they sponsored the video, so we thank them a lot for that. But also, they have a platform that looks fantastic, is easy to use, has overlay, and we honestly just want to help you guys diversify your ways to win in DFS and with sports betting. That's really what we're trying to do. Find the best offers for you. We're not trying to spam you, not trying to go overboard. We're not trying to do any of that. We're just trying to help you get to another platform that makes sense for you. And I really think that No House Advantage is an awesome place. Check the link in the video description below to get started. Get a $50 first match deposit bonus. That free money is hard to come by in any kind of betting, DFS, fantasy football, no matter what you're doing. And it's just an awesome place to play. We think you'll enjoy it a lot over there. Check it out. And now let's talk some wide receiver. Courtland Sutton looks awesome in the tools. You fading him? You playing him? What are you doing? Does he have to get there with Russell Wilson? Do you have to stack him up, or can you play Courtland Sutton alone too?
Yeah, I think you can make cases for both. One, you can stack him just in hopes that there's positive regression for Russell Wilson. The passing game rebounds. Well, that's going to benefit everybody there, including Sutton, who's just flat out underpriced. Then if he doesn't improve, we've already seen Sutton lock down a great target share and relatively strong efficiency, even though it's coming from Russell Wilson. So all that to say, I think he's severely underpriced. Our tools seem to agree. You can play him in captain. You can play him in utility with confidence. He is owned, but according to the projections, he's coming in under owned. And I personally agree, and it comes down to price.
Okay. So I just think that Courtland Sutton is kind of a cop-out kind of player in the fact that he's hyper athletic. He can get things done by being a target monster. He can get things done by just having 4 or 5 passes and getting 100 air yards. We've seen significantly better target share than we did last year. I mean, obviously, with Wilson in the fold, we'd at least know he'd get involved. But we're seeing a 50-yard floor for him, and clearly we can expect 70 to 100 yards if things go even decently right for Courtland Sutton this year. The usage is there. The air yards are there. He's 8th in team air yard share and 13th in team target share. He's just the safest wide receiver by a whole lot. But with Keenan Allen out another week, I guess Mike Williams is creeping up there. The only difference is a significant amount of salary. So that's really what the big difference in our tools will lean us toward Courtland Sutton. Is there a case for playing Mike Williams over Sutton?
Leverage is the main case to be made. And I guess if you want to just talk football schematics, he's the number 1 receiver on the better offense, which should be a very pass-heavy offense. And he's going to be going into a tougher matchup, so people tend to shy away from that. But ultimately, this is a salary game, and we can't play Mike Williams, Justin Herbert, and Austin Ekeler without punting and making some serious concessions in our lineup. So if you do want to play Ekeler, Herbert, the other studs, Mike Williams generally is a player that I am taking out of lineups to achieve that. But I think there's ways you can intelligently build with Williams and get creative to use him. And I do think he's going to provide leverage tonight, regardless of what our tools say. Just like look at optimals from everywhere across the industry. He's in none of them. He's not the most popular player on the slate. Everyone's going to want to pay up just that little extra salary, get to Ekeler, get to Herbert. I think he actually is probably going to provide more leverage than our tools indicate. Just like, I don't see how people play him outside of just being contrarian.
Right. You pay up to be contrarian, which isn't the craziest thing when the player has a ceiling like Mike Williams, especially with Austin Ekeler out. It's not the most likely thing, especially with Denver's defense being very, very tough against the pass. You already talked about Surtain likely seeing a lot of possibly some shadow coverage, not 100%, but they'll see each other on the field. It could be a tough day. At least the ceiling is there, which makes it not crazy. We got some super chats to hit up. Goody with a super chat saying not even factoring Gordon fumbling issues. I don't really factor past fumbles in too much, but we do project them out in our projected stats. So if you want to go over to Stokastic and go to the projected stats page, we do have projected fumbles for players. So you can check that out over there, Goody. Teddy Wayman, member for 9 months. Appreciate you, man. Seen you in these chat streets many times before. What's up, guys? Gajewski, I'll throw this to you. Favorite MVP, FanDuel, large field GPP?
I think it's just this is a hard question for large field because there's so many ways you can go. I personally like just taking the direct leverage off Sutton and going Judy. And then you're also not playing an LA pass catcher or quarterback. So I think you're just shaving off a lot of ownership by doing that. But I think there's so many ways you can go in tournaments. But we haven't talked about Judy yet. He's a player that, just to hint, I like a lot for the larger field stuff.
I agree. I like Judy a lot just because we've already seen some explosive playmaking from him this year, and people haven't seen it in a few weeks. Maybe they're reluctant to play him. Can I honestly say, FanDuel GPP, I like Courtland Sutton. Just 10% expected captain ownership on FanDuel, or MVP ownership, I should say. And I'm already differentiating myself quite a bit there. I realize that's the third most, but I still feel like that's a good start to getting unique. If I just have one contrarian player on top of that, I still think the ceiling is really there for that player. And we should talk about Greg Dulcich for just a moment, but he is definitely a dart throw. Douglas Bowman, he also threw us a super chat asking if Dulcich is a dart throw. His first NFL game at tight end, he just needs one red zone play. Matt, is he in your player pool tonight?
Yeah, but he's really hard to evaluate, not just from a playing time perspective. Like, first of all, who is he? He's a rookie who hasn't played at all this year. He didn't really play in the preseason either. He didn't play in the preseason. He's been injured essentially since summer camp. but they drafted him with pretty decent draft capital. He played at UCLA where he was a receiving tight end. So you guys probably saw Albert Akwe-Bunam inactive tonight. He plays that similar role where he lined up in the slot, a lot of UCLA, really good pass catching numbers. And that seems to be his role tonight, just based on the structure of what tight ends that Denver has active. You know, Tomlinson's a blocker, Saubert's kind of a hybrid, but he's really just a practice squad level guy who's traveled around the NFL now. I don't know how much time he sees right away, but there is upside for him to play, I think, like 60, 70% of the snaps if things shake right and his conditioning is actually underneath him. Now, he is a rookie tight end, so that hurts him. But when we talk about DFS tonight at $200, there is no way in hell he's 5% owned tonight. That's what our tools.
Okay, thank you.
No way.
People don't know the name enough.
Dude, he's in optimals. Like, go across the industry and run optimals. He's in them. I don't know if it's 15%, but it's more than 5.
Yeah.
He's not in our optimal, but he's in.
Oh, you think it's going to be much more? Oh, excuse me.
He's going to be more than 5. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's like 25, 30.
Look, I like some things about the profile. He got a lot of talk up during the summer before he got injured, but he's kind of a tweener tight end that sometimes those players have trouble. They now have been used more efficiently, I would say, in these hybrid receiver tight end roles. But these upper percentile athletes who are a little bit undersized for the tight end position can sometimes really take a minute. We've even seen Kyle Pitts, who you could say is kind of like the alpha of that tweener group, have trouble at times becoming a thing. Now, it's a one-game slate. Things can happen. We're getting super chats, including, Juso Dashing, who also asked about Dulcich in the flex on FanDuel for salary savings. So Matt just broke it down. If you look across the industry, it seems like he's going to actually increase in popularity. This is a player I'm probably just going to be with the field based on ownership projections. And my filler arc, thank you for one more super chat. Watch those MLS playoffs or MLB playoffs possibly. How dare you say this is a crappy game? We got football. We got Monday night. We got even more wide receivers, really. We kind of took a diversion, but we're after 8 p.m., so we want to make sure we get the time for everything. We talked about Courtland Sutton and Mike Williams, and we only briefly mentioned Jerry Jeudy. It's significantly more usage than any other player not named Courtland Sutton, and we already talked about the uncertainty and variability at the tight end position. Tell me the upside about Jerry Jeudy tonight against Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think he's a player that's going to pop for big games here and there. Wide receiver is the most volatile position in football. So unless it's Cooper Kupp, you see these guys bust all the time. Like, even some of the best receivers, like Stephon Diggs, will have single-digit fantasy point performances. And that just happens at wide receiver because of the nature of the way they score points. That could happen to Courtland Sutton at any point in time. And I think you can capitalize on that in showdown slates when players like Jerry Jeudy come in under-owned. Our tools suggest this is the case as well, and he's the very clear number 2 option in Denver. These are the kind of players I like to play a captain a lot to gain leverage. All that to say, it sounds like you're pretty interested in just all the Denver pass catchers as well. That's my stance here too.
100%. I mean, in terms of share of teams' expected fantasy points, remember, expected fantasy points are just targets, air yards, where they happen on the field, rolled up into a scale that makes sense for us. And then we'll just look at it percentage. Courtland Sutton by far has the highest of anyone on either team's receiving core. Jerry Jeudy is actually right behind Mike Williams in share of team expected fantasy points. There's a lot of metrics that point to him looking fairly better than the fact that he's 47th in target share, 52nd in air yard share, 41st in total expected fantasy points. Still creates separation. And in this one game slate where we're kind of looking for ceiling upside, it makes a whole lot of sense to me. The 7K isn't too much at all. Now, talk to me about KJ Hamler, other than the fact that he was absolutely wide open last week and could have changed that game for Denver, but I digress.
Yeah, a lot of routes for him recently. He's kind of a player that's been ascending, coming off the torn ACL, didn't play a lot in the preseason, got active just at the end. And we've seen his snaps and targets rise, albeit very slightly, but he does appear to be the favorite for wide receiver 3 snaps on this team. The one thing I'll say is they do mix in wide receiver 4s sometimes here. And there was a game, I can't remember which week, maybe week 3, week 2, where Kendall Hinton played a ton of snaps. and he played more than KJ Hamler. Now, neither of them have been really that active, but they reactivated Hinton tonight, and he's the stone minimum. I am kind of questioning, okay, like how much do these ancillary players behind Hamler play? Like, does Hinton come in and actually take some snaps from him? And I don't know the answer to that. But ultimately, the way I'm approaching it is I'm playing a fair amount of Hamler just as the presumed wide receiver 3, but I'm also taking some shots on Hinton as well at the stone min because he's active and he had played a lot of snaps in one game at least this year.
Hamler has 4 targets all season. Are you kidding me?
He barely played to start the year though. Like, look at his snaps.
Yeah, no, you're right. Well, 60% snap share week 1 with 1 target isn't a lot to show on 28 routes. Then he has 25% snap share week 3, 8% snap share week 4. Game. Yeah, you're right. And Hinton is a player. If there is one player I know nothing about but I root for, it's Kendall Hinton, who got thrown into that horrible quarterback situation, that COVID game. He had to be the emergency quarterback for the team. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was awesome. It was one of my favorite games all time.
So I don't know if there's anyone just randomly at the bottom of a roster that I'd like to see hit. It's probably Kendall Hinton. That'd be a lot of fun. I have nothing in the stats other than the fact that his snap share has kind of varied a little bit to the point where I'm a little worried about KJ Hamler, especially at 3K. And we have those tight end options who are very, very low salary. Talk to me about on the other side here. DeAndre Carter is going to be pretty popular, or Joshua Palmer as well. How are you breaking down those 2 Los Angeles receivers below Mike Williams?
Yeah, I think both of them deserve some popularity. The reason I think we get to more Carter is a price thing. He's in that KJ Hamler range. He's $400 cheaper than that, a little bit ahead of Saubert in price. He kind of is just like the glue guy that makes your lineup work if you end up down there. I think he's completely fine to play in cash games. Palmer's at a weird price point, and for that reason, I think he's going to go under-owned. And he's just a cheaper attachment to Justin Herbert here in this spot. So for tournaments specifically, he's a guy I do like getting to quite a bit here. He's sort of the Jerry Jeudy of this Chargers offense, if you will, from a DFS perspective tonight.
That's Carter for you?
That's Palmer for me.
Palmer. Yeah.
I think Carter is going to be a little more owned than him just because of price.
I agree. Okay, good. We're on the same page then, because Palmer actually, this is just receiving expected fantasy points. So this has nothing to do with the rushing aspect, but Palmer is essentially tied with Austin Ekeler in share of team expected fantasy points. That just gives you a glimpse of his usage profile, significantly more, almost double the amount in that same metric as DeAndre Carter. So if you're looking at an ownership, rostership difference, I think that might be an edge we can get there. Obviously, it's a 1-game slate. Either of these players could succeed. But I mean, I just think it's because DeAndre Carter has that appealing 2,600 price tag. No, they see that as a saving option, and Palmer in that mid-range, people are kind of iffy to play him.
I 100% agree with you.
Which ham brings home the bacon, Hamler or Parham? Thank you, Stokastic. We appreciate you with the emoji. That's pretty good. That's pretty darn good. Douglas Bowman also has a super chat. McManus or Denver defense in the flex? I like the Denver defense. I know that it means that Justin Herbert doesn't necessarily hit a ceiling. Make your lineup accordingly. But I think Denver defense has a ceiling here, especially when you're talking about trying to take down a large field tournament, playing for a game environment that most people aren't expecting.
Yeah, I actually agree with that tonight, I believe. I do like the kickers quite a bit here, but I think they're going to come in a little more owned than the defenses.
Russell Wilson stalled out drives equal McManus kicks. So that's one way. You see the EMAC emojis. Matt Albacore. Oh my God.
I should change my name to that.
Matt Albacore is.
I'm a Starkiss guy. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Honestly, Starkiss though. Okay. We'll talk tight ends. I do want to give a quick shout out. You see the links in the video description below. We talk No House Advantage and Hardwood, but I do want to say that BetMGM offer, that NHL entry offer is so good. I'm getting in on the action over there. I just found out we have one of our coworkers is their dad works for BetMGM. So go support them. Click the link in the video description below. If any team in your moneyline bet in the NHL scores a goal on a $5 bet or more, you get $200 in free bets. Just click that link in the video description below. All right, talk to me about this. We broke it down a little bit. How are you actually playing out the Denver tight end situation? What do you think the snap share looks like, and what's the most likely target share too?
I'm playing Saubert and cash. I played some Showdown cash. It's the life that I chose. But anyway,
Batman.
Here we go. This freaking Denver tight end situation. I think Saubert is fine. He was in really early optimals this morning, and he's actually still in a couple of them too. I think he's the most likely to play a majority of the snaps and receive a majority of the targets. We broke down why Saubert's a rookie. He hasn't played a lot. He's been injured. It's going to take him some time to get acclimated with the offense. So I still think Saubert is safest, and he's still pretty cheap himself. And I honestly think at this point, he might provide leverage off. I don't know. I don't know where the ownership's going to come in on Dulcich, but I don't think it's crazy to think that Saubert might provide leverage now. I mean, it's wild. The one thing I will say is I'm not playing Tomlinson because he's like a 6th offensive lineman.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. Honestly, this is a mess, guys. We got Andrew Beck, who might have some snaps. We got Eric Tomlinson might have some snaps. And then you got Greg Dulcich, who's apparently the coolest kid in school because everyone's going to play him. We don't know anything about him in an NFL game. I think this is bold. I love your take on Saubert. Just get up to a little bit more certainty at 2K. What about Trey McKitty? And obviously Gerald Everett at 5,600. He doesn't have that same ceiling, but he's a tight end on a Showdown slate. He could catch 2 touchdowns because that's just how it works. But Parham's active, and he's getting more and more snap shares.
Yeah, that's a problem. I still tentatively will play some effort. Just he's a mismatch on this team. He has a lot of snaps still and a fair amount of routes, a red zone role. And I still think he's going to lead this group, but his price isn't great. You know, like I'm finding myself more likely to go down and play the cheaper receivers, play Hamler, play DeAndre Carter, than get to Everett. And then once you get to the ancillary guys, you can certainly throw darts on players like Trey McKitty and Parham. Parham, who's injured to begin the year, his snaps and routes should only rise, in my opinion. And we know what his role is when he's thrown to. He's that big bodied presence. They use him a lot in the red zone. He's still a little bit more expensive than, like a Dulcich and stuff. So he's kind of in this weird price range, even at 1.4, but I'll still use him for leverage in that spot.
I will too. I still worry about the fact that he's not nearly 100%. They're just easing him back in. I want to talk more about this, but we only got 2 minutes to lock. We got to get to this. We got another super chat from Doug. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Last one. 4-2 Denver stacks. He says it's rust time. Do you agree with him? Love the show. Let's ride.
Yes, I do. I am playing Denver stacks. I think they're going to go under on tonight.
Oh, there it is. There it is. So you you already talked about liking the Broncos defense. Brandon McManus, obviously, there's a lot of ways this goes right at 3,800. But as someone in chat was saying, we haven't talked at all about the Chargers defense, who, if Russ looks like he has been just cooking spoiled eggs or whatever, Chargers defense could have a day here at 4,400 as well.
Yeah, I think that's true. They've lost a lot on that defense already. It hasn't lived up to expectations, but the talent's there. The talent is there.
The talent is there. The upside is there for both defenses, and the floor is there for both kickers. I have plenty of Dustin Hopkins, but honestly, truthfully, I'm within 2% of our expected ownership on both kickers. I hate to say it as we get to our final minute before lock, but I don't have a strong feeling on which way to go on either kicker. If you do, tell the people that as we head out, and some final words as we get to 30 seconds until lock.
Yeah, slight preference for Hopkins, just higher implied team total. They're both good kickers. You can't go that wrong in this slate, but Hopkins for me. Otherwise, thank you guys for watching. Crazy slate. If you're here watching another Denver Showdown, I know you guys are loyal listeners, so we appreciate you here so much, and let's take down some money tonight.
The D-Gens are here, and we appreciate you more than we could ever say. Follow him at Matt_Gajewski. I'm at Draftaholic. For all of us over at the Stokastic DFS group, make sure you click out those links in the video description below. Lots of free stuff, free money happening for you. Great time of year for sports. It's Denver Showdown time. For all of us, have a great night. See you later.